Hello, everybody, and welcome to another collective Hotelier PULSE Report session in collaboration with our founding members and members, Great Hotels of the World and Guest Centric. This is our third session of the Hotelier PULSE Report, and we have a great guest joining us today all the way from Brazil. But before I introduce our guest and bring Pedro into the call, I just would like to take a moment to remind everybody to please make sure for our next session that you, if you're a hotelier, to click on the link in the window the link in the window that's coming up, and please add your input to that survey, because the more information and data that is provided into that survey, then the richer that the report can actually be. And also, what we'd like to encourage from the audience today, if possible, is if they'd like to submit a question for the next survey, something that you'd like to have some feedback on, or if you'd like to see any data on in specific terms there. So please make sure that you leave us a question there. Now, in this session today, we are covering the findings of the 10th edition Hotelier PULSE Report. And in this edition, this is a year-end edition for the review of 2020, actually. And this is analyzing the key market trends from booking behavior to channel performance in 2020 versus 2019. And we're also a review of what hoteliers worldwide are expecting for the industry's recovery in 2021. So with all of that said, I'd like to introduce Mr. Joao Corte-Real, who is the General Manager of Tivoli Hotels and Resorts based out of São Paulo in Brazil. Joao, lovely to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to give me the opportunity to share my experience with you.
Thank you. It's great to have you. How's the weather in Brazil?
It's okay. It's summer here, so weather is beautiful.
Brilliant. Excellent. Also joining us is, of course, Mr. Pedro Colaco, CEO of Great Hotels of the World and founder of Guest Centric. Pedro, lovely to see you again. How are you?
Good to see you. We're doing okay. It's not summer here, so but I was in Miami last week, so
no, it's certainly
that was a little bit better.
It certainly isn't summer here either, unfortunately. All right, gentlemen, let's get started into it. We've got some interesting data here that I'd like to bring up for the session. The first one is essentially from the reports of last year that domestic travel made a conservative comeback in 2020, representing 49.7% of nights booked per annum versus 23% in the year of 2019. So, Joao, I'd like perhaps to start with you and ask you, how has your hotel and other local hotels in your area responded to that demand?
Here, of course, we are very focused on the local market. But first of all, I would like to summarize what's happened in the last year and share with you what is the feeling, the sentiment that we have here, especially during the year 2020. It's important to say that Brazil is a large country with more than 200 million inhabitants and divided by states like the United States. And this means that, for example, the things that we practice here in Brazil, in São Paulo, is completely different what's happening in Manaus, Bahia, or Rio de Janeiro. Referring to the state of São Paulo, I would say that most hotels closed in March, April 2020, and reopened in September. The hotels were never forced to close, and the option to stop the activity was related to the lack of guests and business in this region. In our specific case, we stayed 5 months closed from April to September. We restart our activity from the moment we had some airplane crews returning, since they guarantee a business base that justified the opening. And during the closing period, we shortened our team and took advantage of the government support measures for the rest of the staff, as revenue was zero throughout this period. When we reopened in September, occupancy was around 30 to 40%. Restaurants worked quite well with several restrictions, such as 40% of the room space capacity, opening from 10 p.m. and finishing serving alcoholic drinks at 8 p.m. And we see people, especially from the state of São Paulo, in Brazil in general, but I would say most of our guests are local guests, between 7 to 80%, and Brazilians, and 30 to 40% of them from the state of São Paulo. So local market is really important for us, and we focus our strategy in terms of sales and promotions, of course, on the local markets.
Okay, great. Pedro, obviously yourself with guest-centric and great hotels of the world. What are you seeing in terms of these numbers? Is that something that's representative of your hotels as well, even though it's not in Brazil?
Well, obviously Brazil is a very special market where a lot of the travel has been domestic, and really our hotels are mostly in Western Europe and the US. But I mean, we had seen a trend coming through 2015 to 2019 where international travel was really taking a bigger and bigger share in terms of what was happening, and because people were very mobile. You know, Airbnb obviously drove a lot of international travel. Low-cost airlines drove a lot of international travel, and we really saw that sort of the share of domestic fell from about 50% in 2015 to about 25% in 2019, and then obviously with the lockdowns and the travel restrictions in 2020, we've seen really an uptake of domestic travel. It's now getting very close to where it was in 2015, and actually what we're seeing, the early trends in 2021 now, is actually that it's even more so. So international travel is very, very dependent on air capacity. Air capacity has been severely restricted. Travel, restrictions have been put in place between many countries, and that obviously has had an impact, which means that we're seeing, I would say, in the high 40s to percent of all traffic right now going to our hotels is domestic.
Mm-hmm. Joao, well, how's the sentiment now in the new year with 2021? Let's just say, for example, the first quarter, just generally within the region there, how's the sentiment with the hotelier community as a whole?
Yeah, regarding the sentiment of the industry, after the reopening, there's a positive expectation because we start to worry about the vaccination and everything. So the feeling was very positive at the beginning, from September until 1 month ago. But this feeling was losing strength as the cases increased significantly, and the governor of São Paulo was forced to take more restrictive measures in order to control the pandemic. Currently, restaurants can be open only until 8 p.m. on the weekdays, and on weekends we are only allowed to serve guests through room service. So it was very restricted. Yeah. I would say that in general, the hotels are still suffering a lot from all the restrictive measures, but the vaccination plan is already in progress here in São Paulo, and they're doing quite well. So that leaves us some hope. At this stage, there's no expectation of having a good Q1 or Q2. Events, weddings, meetings are being postponed to the last quarter, which we believe is a period that will return to a certain normality.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, moving on to the next one. The 10th edition of the report marks actually an 8% decrease of hotels, still showing in a complete shutdown scenario. So from 31% in November of 2020, in that survey, it went from 31 to 23% in the December 2020 survey. Now, it seems that resorts represent the majority of hotels with minor restrictions. So again, Joao, taking hotel property segments and local restrictions into consideration, how are these segments currently positioned within your region?
Regarding the segments, there's also a change here. This hotel had in the past above all groups and corporate segments with short stays, typically from people who come to do business in São Paulo. And currently we notice an increment of people who come in leisure, including families, which was rare at this hotel. There were practically no children in our hotel before. And today we have to adapt our offer to this type of public, offering suites, family rooms, which increased greatly, especially during the weekend. So in the past, we had more occupancy during the weekdays with the corporates and groups. And now we perform better during the weekends with leisure segments. I think the reason for that is because São Paulo continue to have some attractions, and many people come to stay with us, special from the surrounding cities. And they come here basically to enjoy restaurants, to do some shopping, because they were locked down too much time at home. So when the economy reopened, they travel to São Paulo to do some shopping. They don't need to travel by plane. So as I mentioned before, they come from the surrounding cities. And some people also come to visit some museums that are working quite well with some limitations, of course. So, but even in this pandemic period, São Paulo continue to have some attractions. And again, I would say that 80% of our guests now are leisure, comparing to the past that we have like 30-40% of leisure, and most of the guests come from the corporate segment group.
Mm-hmm. And Pedro, are you seeing similar numbers yourself in your hotels?
Yeah, so it's quite surprising, this result of the survey in December, because I was expecting really that the curve was going to keep going up, because our relationship with our hotels is very close, and a lot of them are closed, are basically shut down. So I was very surprised that there was a decrease in December versus an increase in December of hotels in shutdown. I'm not sure why that is. I do believe that some people did the survey early in December, and they may have decided to shut down their hotels later on. I also think that it's interesting that in December, 30% of the resorts said that they were in recovery. So I think they've had a good summer, and they were sort of banking on a good year end with Christmas and New Year's Eve and so on. And then sort of the lockdowns came into place and sort of threw that by the wayside. So I'm anxious to see the January results, to see if this is a trend of actually people are opening up, because that does not match with what we see in our customer portfolio. So I would expect this number to be much higher, to be very honest. So I was very surprised.
Okay. Here we have another hotel in the Bahia region. It's a big resort in Bahia, and they are performing very well, to be honest with you. I think that we are suffering much more here in the city. So again, no corporate, no events, no weddings, but the resorts here in Brazil and in the countryside, they are performing sometimes better than they performed on the years before. So
yeah, we see that in other markets also. So yes.
Yeah, which is an interesting trend. I think people are looking now to open space, to have more fresh air, not to stay at the city. And I think some business, some hotels, some resorts are doing very well, very well.
If anything, it shows that people are still very keen to want to get out and about. So I don't think there's any interest in the demand there. That's definitely there.
Okay, actually, let me add just one thing to what you just said, André, because it's very interesting. So on the Great Hotel side, one of the things that we do is we do activities with our hotels and put them in front of meeting planners and meeting buyers and so on. And one of the comments was that they're a little bit fed up with the virtual events now. Yeah. So there's some fatigue of doing virtual meetings with buyers and so on, and they're dying to get back on the road. And we're seeing some hotels now actually already booking trips for the fourth quarter to go visit the UK, to go visit Germany. So I think everybody's ready to go. It's just get the pandemic curve into a controllable state, get the vaccination out there, and then everybody's going to be ready to go.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is that whilst there is that, obviously there is still that demand, but how are the hotels also ensuring that there's the cleanliness is assured? And I'm not saying that they're not clean. Of course they're clean, but there is this now COVID expectation of sanitation and all of those. Is there a special message by those hotels to the audience or to their customers that basically we are doing extra cleaning to make sure that it is safe for you to travel here? Or are people just taking the normal expectation and just going anyway? They're kind of thinking, well, it doesn't really matter, let's just travel.
I would say here in our specific case, we hire international consultants that gave us a help to do all the protocols and safety measures. We have a lot of visual information in all hotel, not only at the reception, but also in the rooms, in the outlets. And in addition, we have a partnership with a benchmark hospital here in São Paulo. And the idea is to give confidence to the customer to stay with us. The protocols are very strict. We really follow them, and I think that we pass this message of safety to guests stay with us.
Okay, great. Okay, look, before we go on, I'd like to also just remind everybody watching and tuning in that Lay is going to be putting in a link into the comment section for our next survey, or for the next session survey. So if hoteliers are out there watching, please do click on that link and make sure that if you're interested to add your data into the survey, because obviously the more that Pedro and his team get, the more rich and in detail these reports and this data can be. So please keep an eye out in the comment section for the URL, and make sure that you add that data. That would be amazing. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to our next session, Joao, the other interesting point, obviously, and I don't think it's really any surprise anymore, is that direct channels are showing the most resilience in the booking channels or in the process. Now, obviously, in 2020, that was the case. It generated around 58.6% of the bookings in 2019, which was outperforming Booking by 41.5%, Expedia by 22.8%, and the GDSs by 26.6%. So how would you say yours and other local hotels there have responded to that demand, and how do local hotels expect to capitalize on this in 2021? What is it that they're doing to ensure that they're really maximizing the direct opportunity?
Here, I would say that our main strategy is our focus is to offer special conditions on our brand.com and reservation center. Normally, what we do, we offer special rates, or we have some added values like spa credit, F&B credit. But there's still many reservations coming from OTAs. I think here in our hotel, OTA is representing something between 30 to 40% of our market mix. It's difficult to force the guests to make their bookings through our websites. Websites from OTAs are very friendly, and special here in Brazil, they allow the installment payments, which is something very popular in Brazil. And I think the decisions to make bookings through booking.com or to expedia.com is because they allow that installment payments. It's difficult, but again, our websites are performing well. I would say we are competing with OTAs, and I would say that they represent here 30 to 40% of our total market.
Okay, so you mentioned obviously the websites aren't ideal. So is that something that hotels have focused on improving in that experience for the booker? So to try to make sure that the direct experience is maximized, or have they essentially left what they've had in place and just hope that it's been adequate?
We here in Brazil, we are very aggressive in terms of direct communication with guests. Social media is very it's a essential vehicle here in Brazil. So we talk a lot direct to guests through the social media. For example, changing here a little bit from reservations to F&B, we have our restaurant on our rooftop that has more than 100,000 followers. And our marketing department has been working with direct communication with our guests, promoting cocktail events, live, chef tables experience, so on and so forth. So allowing us to serve more than 100 guests per period, which is an interesting number taking into consideration all the São Paulo restrictions. So, and we do the same for reservations. We have a direct contact to our guests, a lot on social media. Instagram is a huge platform to communicate with the guests, promotions, special rates, credits, everything. So we do through the social media, and we perform very well on these platforms as well. So this is the way that we have to collect more direct reservations instead to be reliant on the booking.com or Expedia or other OTAs.
Mm-hmm. How have you changed your distribution strategy to support this year, if at all?
our sales strategy has changed dramatically here. We are, again, more focused on the local markets. We have our promotions are made in different ways, namely through the sales representatives that we have in Rio de Janeiro, Bahia, or Brasilia, and obviously in São Paulo. Our big effort is in São Paulo, which is the state with more room nights in our hotel, representing something between 30 to 40% of our total room nights in this property. So we are on the daily basis in contact with our sales promoters, and they are working well. Again, I'll not say 100%, but 80% on our efforts are on the local market and direct bookings.
Mm-hmm. And Pedro, I don't think it's really, I mean, are you surprised by these results? I don't think we should be, really. Do you? I mean, everybody's been affected by this, including the hotel.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, but I am how can I say this? I am quite proud that the direct channel is so resilient, right? Because maybe this is an opportunity for people to understand that, especially in these times of pandemic and so on, people want a direct contact to the hotel, and really that direct has outperformed Booking.com and Expedia by so much in the past year, where the drop was smaller, the recovery was much faster, and actually we had sort of a reasonable, almost normal summer. Is quite surprising. I wouldn't say surprising, but it's really good news. I think this is also dependent on there's more domestic travel. Domestic travelers are more inclined to book direct than international travelers because they have the confidence that they're not going to be left out in the cold. And again, that's another positive thing. If hotels really try to stimulate domestic travel, not only are these people local people, but also they are going to book more direct. Therefore, there's going to be a better bottom line for the hotels. And at the end of the day, in this recovery, everybody's looking for guests, but I think people should also be looking for profitable guests, right? Just don't sell at any point at any price, right?
I think that's a good point. We have a question here from an audience member, Michael Kunche. Michael, I hope I pronounced that correctly. And that is, do you believe that luxury travel will face tougher competition after the end of Corona crisis, or do you expect business to jump back to the level before the pandemic? Joao, how do you feel about that?
I think, of course, we will suffer during this pandemic, and the recovery will be slow. But at the end, I think luxury market. I think that we continue here to have our regular guests. We didn't drop the rates. We continue to have guests that believe on us, and the rates that we offer justify the value the customers pay. So I think luxury market will have a quick recovery comparing to the 4-star or 3-star hotels. This, again, I think even the events and weddings that were postponed for the last quarter, people continue to arrange, to organize events and weddings here with us. The price is quite high, so I think that will recover better comparing to the other hotels.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so moving on, following the steady increase in hoteliers expecting revenue declines of 50% or more last year versus 2019, the start of 21 is actually showing a 4.4% decrease in respondents who share this sentiment. So that's also interesting. So, Joao, what would you say is the reason for this shift in sentiment, perhaps?
I think, again, all of us have a lot of expectations about what's happened with the post-COVID period. At the beginning, as I mentioned to you before, people were very positive. Summer was not so bad in Europe, so we continue to have international guests coming to our hotel. So there was a lot of expectations. Although, as we seen the numbers increasing, and since we have more restrictive measures, I think people are not so positive now. I think we will see that with the recovery, we start to feel the recovery, especially from second semester onwards. I would say that these first 6 months, we continue to suffer a lot, in my opinion. Of course, we continue to operate with 30, 40, 45% occupancy. That's my best expectations for this period. Again, rates, we continue. We don't want to drop the rates. We continue. We want to continue to offer nice service, nice spa, good restaurants, and people continue to pay the same rates. And I think that is something that we have to pass through this during the next few months. And from July onwards, I think that we will see some recovery. But again, we will to have the numbers that we had in 2019. Will take, in my opinion, 2 to 3 years to have the same performance.
Yeah, I think that's the general sentiment across most regions. Pedro, I think you'd agree, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And actually, I want to go back to the point of luxury recovery, because I think in the first wave of the pandemic, we saw that actually budget hotels and sort of the lower end was doing better, because I think there was still some corporate travel that was going on, and sort of, people that had to travel. What we're seeing now with the second wave, and actually it's sort of interesting now in January, we're seeing a big increase in ADR of booked nights, which means that actually the luxury segment is doing better than the lower segments in this second wave of lockdown. So I think that again, we went through one wave, but this second wave is looking very different than the first wave that we went through here in Europe. And the second thing is, I do believe that there's an effect on the study in December that people were closing their books, and they actually realized, a bunch of them, that actually the price didn't go down as much as they sort of thought it would have gone, because they know what their advertised price is, but actually what matters is the price at which the rooms were sold, right? And actually what we've seen is that consumers are willing to spend. There, a lot of people that weren't traveling internationally were willing to spend that money domestically. So they ended up selecting, potentially, upgrading the facilities that they would be going to, because they would be saving on the airfare. So we are sort of very, I wouldn't say bullish, but we are very sort of hopeful that this not getting into price and discounts and so on is a trend that's going to hold, and we're not going to degrade the positioning of our destinations going forward.
So optimistic.
I totally agree. I think that I strongly believe that those who have lowered the prices will have more difficulty when the market returns to normal. So I think that the luxury market decided at a certain point to keep the price, to keep the rates, because otherwise it will be very, very difficult, the recovery.
I think this is also a really good message for everyone, essentially, because historically that's not something that's happened, and I think now we're starting to realize the value of holding those rates, because it maintains
maybe
the value.
Revenue managers have something to do with that, right? I think there's
absolutely. But it just goes to show as well, over, let's say, even just in the last 5 years, the difference of mindset when it comes to that, and the way that side of the industry or business is approached, I think has become a lot more sophisticated, which is very, very good.
Correct.
Okay, great. So I'd like to just also ask, well, as I mentioned before, there has been a need to put a special cleaning program in place, and it's risen in importance once again, and it actually now ranks 3rd in the list of short-term recovery priorities for this year. And we were also seeing a lot of sites now that have special badges that say that they are, COVID ready, et cetera. So would you say that this is the case also in Brazil and in your region?
Yes.
And if so, why? I mean, how are you, for example, how are you approaching it from your side?
Yeah, what we did here, it's again, we hired an international consultant. They implement a program. They stay with us for several months during the closing period. There's a lot of training sessions for our staff. We implement all the protocols. We have audits every month here at our hotel. So a different consultant come here, a different auditor come here to check if everything is in place. I think our staff observe this very well. They are really committed and follow all the protocols. We have a stamp. Saying that we have all the procedures in place. And we announced that, of course, it's also a marketing way to say that we have everything and we are ready to welcome the guests. And of course, and pass the confidence to guests to stay with us. We have here and there some guests that complain a lot because we are very strict here, and they said, okay, I went to another hotel, I visited a different state or a different resort, and they don't have so strict measures. But at the end, I think that we are doing okay and we are doing well, and this is the way. Until we have all the vaccination in place, I think that we have to follow all these measures.
I think it's fair to say it's probably going to be for some time yet, right? So it's probably going to just become the normal way of doing operations on that side. Pedro, are you seeing the same thing as well across your hotels?
What we're seeing is that, as the pandemic loosens up, this tends to be less of a concern, both with consumers and with the hoteliers. And as the crisis escalates, this becomes top of mind again, and people again think about how can I do this. I think a lot of the hoteliers we speak to are very concerned about somebody, being infected in their hotels, and that sort of damaging their reputation. And I think that it has to do, this pandemic is very, it goes up and down, right? The numbers are bad, the numbers are good, the numbers are bad, the numbers are good. And I think that changes the mix here of concerns. I do think that on this item, though, that there's a lot of people, and this has been steadily increasing from the beginning, of creating special offers and packages. And that really means, either giving some value add, as Joao was saying, an F&B voucher, a spa voucher, whatever I can do to really wrap it up into a thing that makes people want to come, right? Whether it is, packaging it with some local activities that are still open, or offering breakfast when typically you wouldn't, because people don't want to go out for breakfast. And we see that these small things make a whole lot of difference in terms of how hotels position in terms of empathy towards the consumers and the guests.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we're also, obviously we're perhaps focusing more on the room side of things when it comes to that cleaning program, but have you also adjusted, or did that also include the food and beverage side of the operation, and what were the main differences that were applied there?
Yeah, we have a lot of restrictions here when you talk about F&B. Here in São Paulo, at this point, we are only allowed to serve meals until 8 p.m. We notice, of course, different behaviors from guests that normally here, traditionally, we eat late at night, but now they come to have dinner at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and stay until 8 p.m. And then 8 p.m. we shut down all the outlets, and we continue to serve our guests through room service.
Okay.
Here and there, of course, we do some promotions. Especially, we have a very nice restaurant at our rooftop. We have small events, cocktails events, chef tables experience, something simple with all the measures. For example, the capacity of the restaurant now can be only 40% of the normal capacity. We have the social distance. All the people are using glasses and face shields and gloves and everything. So we have all the protocols in place. At the beginning, it was a little bit strange, to be honest with you, but now even our guests, they feel safe, and they feel that we are doing the things on a good way. But again, things can change. So 2 weeks ago, we were allowed to serve meals until 10 p.m. As Pedro says, things come up and down, and we have to adapt quickly and follow the measures that for, in this case, for the state of São Paulo.
Okay, great. Very good. We have a question as well from a gentleman who I think is in Brazil, perhaps maybe not, but the name I won't even try and pronounce. I'll just go with Felipe. Joao, did you differentiate online experience from competitors and OTAs? And if you did, do you have more direct bookings as a result?
We did what Pedro already mentioned before. So we normally, if people book through our website or of our central reservation, We give some. We include the breakfast normally on the rates, and again, it's nice. Make the difference. We have a nice breakfast with a wonderful view over the skyline of São Paulo. So it's make the difference. We offer vouchers. We offer vouchers, spa vouchers, and F&B vouchers, and we also try when we have the guests here saying we book direct through our website. We will give an upgrade. So we invest a lot on the direct bookings and to create this confidence in our guests to book directly through us. The problem here is, as I mentioned to you before, OTA is very popular around Brazil. It's difficult to fight with OTAs. They are very important to us. They represent a lot of market. Again, 35 to 40% of our market comes through OTAs. And the apps and the websites of OTAs are very user friendly. They can parcel the payments, which make the difference when we are booking. This is something that we are not doing now, but of course our priority is for the direct bookings, and we invest a lot on this.
Okay.
Right. If I may just follow up, so
please.
You haven't really seen a change in mix in 2019 versus 2020. It's very similar in your hotel. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Absolutely.
Okay. Because we did see a different mix, mostly in Western Europe and the US, where direct has grown significantly, and actually in January it's growing even further, and it's now at 48.5% of all bookings is through the direct website. So it's really sort of a trend that we're seeing, at least in the portfolio that we have in Western Europe and the US.
Yeah. Okay.
And a follow-up question from Philippe Joao is, do you feel that guests have different expectations and different purchasing behaviors?
I think after we reopened, I think we noticed that people spend more money, spend more in our hotel after the reopening. I think people was locked down too much time at home. And when the economy reopened again and they are allowed to travel and to stay at hotels, so I think at the beginning we noticed that people really want to spend more money, to ask for better wines, to make proper meals with everything, starter, first quarter, second quarter, dessert, everything. We saw a lot of cocktails. So that's the beginning. Things now return to a certain normality. And I think the habits and the habits consumptions are the same before the pandemic.
Okay.
I would just hope that my personal alcohol consumption goes down after the pandemic, because I'm drinking way too much.
Okay.
You're not the only one, Pedro. I think my whiskey cabinet has never been so dry.
Okay.
Okay, Pedro, do you have any other slides that you'd like to add to the session before we?
Honestly, let me just. I think it is interesting just to take a look at this slide, which is sort of looking forward, right? And looking forward, we saw a big sort of degradation of sentiment within the hoteliers about when they will recover to the same financial position as the year 2019, right? So in June, there was still 70% or so of hoteliers that thought that this was going to be okay, because we were, bookings were growing and the summer was coming and the markets were in, right? And everybody was very optimistic. And we saw a slow but steady degradation of that sentiment. I think that it's good news to some extent that in December that sentiment has sort of flattened out, and people do still believe that in 2022 we're going to have a good year. That's also where I sit personally, because I do think that vaccination, what Israel is doing, is just amazing, right? And there was a report that came out today that says that actually the vaccine is much more effective than actually they thought it would be. That after the second dose, they saw an immediate drop in cases. And I'm very optimistic that if in our markets, right, in Europe and in the US, we get the vaccination thing in place, that things are going to be okay in 2022. And as I was telling you earlier, André, I was in Miami last week, and in Miami they've converted a parking lot into a testing and vaccination facility. So you never leave your car. You arrive there, you do your online booking, and then you have a QR code. You arrive there, you show your QR code. It's straight ahead for testing, go right for vaccination. And they process 2,000 tests and 2,000 vaccines per hour. And this is just one of the facilities they have in Miami. So 2,000 vaccines per hour is 500,000 a month, right? So I think if governments, if local governments get their act together, we're going to be in a relatively reasonable shape into 2022. And I believe that there's this pent-up demand that a lot of people want to travel, and they're as soon as they're vaccinated, they're not going to be afraid to jump on planes. And we just have to, but as João said in the beginning, we have some tough months ahead, right? I think February is going to be difficult, March is going to be difficult, April is going to be difficult. Maybe May, things are going to start improving, and hopefully 2022 is going to be back to sort of normal, right?
Yeah. I think that's the general sentiment. Okay, great. We have another question from a viewer, and it's Del Valle Anaya. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's wonderful seeing all these amazing names. Joao, Brazilian talent has spread all over the world during the last decades. How many of that talent has found a welcome back to the industry in Brazil at this moment?
Brazil is, as I mentioned to you before, it's a huge country. And it's different from region to region. Okay, I think São Paulo is an amazing place. There's a lot of talents here, especially in São Paulo. A lot of people come from the countryside or to the other states to São Paulo, because São Paulo have more than 12 million inhabitants. People come here to São Paulo to success. There's a lot of good people working on hotel industry here. I was surprised to see the quality of the hotels that we have here in São Paulo. I think if you go to the countryside or if you go to the different states, it's completely different. But in São Paulo, all the big brands are here. They are before the pandemic. They performed very, very well. I really believe that, as Pedro said before, that after 6, 7, 8 months, especially 2022, we'll have all these people working very well. There's a lot of talent here. I really believe in these people. They have a lot of international experience as well. Again, here in São Paulo. São Paulo as a big metropolis, there's a lot of talent. A lot of people come here to success. And 2022, I'm very confident that the things return to a certain normality.
Yeah. So you basically, I think what you're saying is you don't have any fears about being able to ramp up the staff talent that you've had historically, perhaps.
No, I'm very confident.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, guys, we've literally come up to 45 minutes, so I think we should perhaps wrap this session up for today. It's been a great session. We have one more question come through on the comments, so let's quickly get to that one. Joao, I understand that your unit have a SPA. Is your costumer keen to use that service during the pandemic lockdown? Does SPA services survive this moment?
Spa, I think
Spa.
Yes, that was something that was quite surprising for us, because we thought at the beginning that all the things that we heard, people not use the spa. But the spa is performing quite well. We open, and initially we reduced the schedule, the timetable of our spa, thinking that we will not have so many guests to spa. But it was a surprise, and people they are confident again. They believe in our protocols, and they come here and they use the spa. Not only guests that are staying with us, but even outside guests. We have a very popular brand, Antara, and Antara Spa is our brand. It's a Thai company. I would say that we are one of the best spas here in São Paulo, very well known, and the performance is very good. It was a surprise, but it's very nice.
That's good. Please excuse my actual spelling of that word. I think everybody knows how the word spa is spelled. We deal with too many acronyms in this industry. So
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Okay, gentlemen, well, listen, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Joao, of course, thank you for joining us from beautiful Brazil. It's lovely to have you on the session. And to everybody watching, thanks again for watching. And please don't forget to check out the 10th edition of the Hotelier Pulse Report on the LinkedIn event description page for more 2020 year in review insights and the industry expectations for this year. And if you'd like to receive the 11th edition directly in your inbox every month, please do take the survey we shared in the chat, and we welcome also suggested survey questions from everybody who's been watching. If you can't put the questions into the chat, you can also email them directly to us at info@Techtalk.Travel or to Melissa Rodriguez at guestcentric.com. That's Melissa with a double S and Rodriguez, Rodriguez, at guestcentric.com. Okay, so gentlemen, until next time, unless there's anything else, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone listening in and sharing their data, because only by sharing data can we come together as an industry and really overcome this, right? We have a rough period ahead, but the light is end of the tunnel, and I do think that the light is getting brighter.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so
André.
too.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thanks, everybody.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.